All right, aloha everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our March Public Health Training Hui. Today's topic is a practice in coping skills, addressing stress and anxiety, presented by Amanda Martinez from Mental Health America of Hawaii. My name is Makawana Mahoy. I am with Hi-Fi. Before we get started, I would like to go over some Zoom housekeeping for you folks. First, I have to get a shout out to the organizers of this training, myself, the Hawaii Public Health Training Hui Steering Committee of 14 members, Get Fit Kauai, and the Maui Molokai and Lanai Hio Coalition. Sponsors for today's training and our actual training series is again through the Public Health Training Hui, the Western Region Public Health Training Center, and the Public Health Learning Network. For all questions, please utilize the chat box or the question and answer box located at the bottom of your screen. This webinar is being recorded and it will be shared on the Hawaii Public Health Training Hui's YouTube channel, as well as shared in the Mahalo email that I will send you folks following this training. We have continuing education credits for the 4 following topics: CHES, registered dietitians, licensed social workers, licensed clinical social workers, and substance abuse counselors. In order to obtain your continuing education credits, first you must register and attend today's webinar. I will be emailing you folks in the Mahalo email the evaluation for today. Please complete the evaluation by Tuesday, March 22nd, by close of business. All of the certificates of attendance will be mailed out by April 1st. And for folks who are calling in today, please email myself at makamai@hifi.org with your name and phone number from today. And any missing certificates from the last 2 weeks, please make sure to email myself or the Public Health Hui's email address. For today's guest speaker, I would like to introduce, her name is Amanda Martinez, who is currently the training program for Mental Health America of Hawaii. Since 2017, she has trained thousands of youth and adults in Hawaii with Mental Health America's youth suicide and bullying prevention and mental wellness trainings. She is also a certified trainer for mental health first aid and youth mental health first aid trainings. Amanda received her master's in public health degree from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, specializing in social and behavioral health sciences. She is interested in mental health wellness promotion among youth and young adults, especially among sexual and gender minorities. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Amanda.
Great, thank you, Maka. Hello, everyone. Happy Aloha Friday. Just give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with all of you folks. If for some reason it doesn't pop up in the next couple seconds or so, go ahead and drop it in the chat and I could do some troubleshooting on my end. But like you just heard, my name is Amanda Martinez. I am the training program manager for Mental Health America of Hawaii. And what we'll be going through today is one of our presentations called a practice in coping skills. So using different kind of tools to be able to address increasing levels of stress and anxiety. It was developed in partnership with my awesome coworker, Dr. Mistisa Goss. So I do encourage interaction, much like the first presentation with this series. We are in webinar format, so you can't unmute or turn your camera on, but I do like to keep the chat box open during our entire time together. If you have any questions about a slide that we may be on, or as we move through the material, feel free to drop it in. But again, at the end, we will also have time for any questions that may pop up. You can utilize the Q&A box. But if you just have like comments you want to add to the discussion, please feel free to drop that in the chat. Right, so for today, we'll be exploring coping skills, right? Why they are important, when we should be using them, and how we can use those skills to really build up our emotional strength, right? To increase our sense of resiliency, not just for ourselves, but how we can also adapt them for our keiki, for adolescents, for our young adults as well. So if you've attended any of our trainings previously with Mental Health America of Hawaii, then you know that we love our quotes. We like starting off with a quote. So here's one we have for you today is, as you grow older, you will discover that you have 2 hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others. And by Maya Angelou. And I think it's a really great quote that highlights the importance of also taking care of yourself, right? You cannot pour into others when you yourself are empty. So we have to take that time to invest in our mental health so that we are able to show up for others. And there's a lot of different ways that we can invest in our mental health. I know the first part of this series, we did that kind of deeper dive into practicing self-care. So we learned those 10 easy tools that we can utilize every single day to take care of our mental health in general. So this is just kind of a summary of the different aspects or the different pieces that make up mental health or make up the practice of self-care. One of them that is really important is validating your emotions. We as human beings experience a whole wide range of different kinds of feelings and emotions, right? Again, that we don't necessarily have a whole lot of control over. They could be mixed, they can circle right back to each other. We could feel lost or overwhelmed at different times and then go back to feeling like pretty okay and focused and balanced and then right back to feeling like overwhelmed and stressed out. And that's really a part of being a human being, especially during stressful times, which is definitely something that we all have been in over the past couple of years, with so much that has been happening and constantly changing, not just with the pandemic, but really everything else that's happening in the world and with our lives today. Validating our emotions is actually a really big part of taking care of our mental health, right? Your experiences are your experiences and they are absolutely valid, right? So we want to stay away from like cross comparing our experiences with others. So we may be having thoughts or saying things like, well, like my situation isn't that bad, right? Other people have it way worse than I do. And we want to try to stay away from that perspective because we want to validate our experiences. Like it's absolutely okay to be feeling what you're feeling and experiencing what you're experiencing. We just want to be able to find the ways that we can cope with that, right? That we can manage our increasing levels of stress and anxiety. Staying connected, of course, is a really big part of taking care of our mental health too. We're very social beings. We crave that feeling of connection and being supported by the people that we care about, and also being connected to our community in a much larger sense too. Self-care can also look like not over-checking, right? So don't over-check. And by this, I mean, if you are someone who likes to stay informed and up to date by checking the news often throughout your day, or checking social media for updates, whatever that may be. Constantly checking may not be the most helpful way to take care of our mental health, especially with so many different kinds of information that's being made available, sometimes even conflicting information that's being made available, and it's so easy for us to access. So if you are someone who likes to stay informed, I would consider maybe setting just a couple times during your day to check the news, to get that information that you need. And that way you can put your time and energy focusing on what else you need to get done throughout your day instead of just constantly monitoring the news. I sometimes liken it to monitoring your coffee intake because I'm a big coffee drinker, but I know that if I drink too much coffee or have coffee a little too late in the day, then my anxiety levels start to rise a little bit, right? So if you find a similar situation happening with you, maybe consider having a more structured way for you to stay informed. Reaching out for others is kind of along the lines of connecting, right? Checking in on the vulnerable in our social circles, just checking in with our friends and our loved ones can be a great way to practice self-care as well. We want to do our best to follow a routine. As human beings, we crave routine and consistency. So keeping as much of a routine as we are able to, like going to bed around the same time every night, waking up around the same time every morning, even if we may be learning or working remotely, is really going to help us in providing that structure that we need to get through our day. Use social media responsibly, of course. We want to be able to share information, share pieces of our lives, maybe share resources even, but we want to make sure that we are doing so in a responsible way so that we are vetting things, right? We are double checking that the information that we're passing along is from a reliable source, from a reputable organization, but also knowing that social media can have different impacts on our own mental health too. And it is okay to take a break every once in a while. Ask yourself, either before you're sharing something, is what I'm posting or sharing going to be helpful, right? Is that going to be beneficial to someone who may see it? If it's not, or you're not sure, it may be best to not share that post or to pass that information along, but you can ask yourselves questions like that too when you're thinking about the impact that social media may have on your mental health. Like, do I feel better after going on Instagram or Facebook, or Snapchat, or TikTok, right? Whatever social media platform you might be on. And if you're starting to feel like, oh, I'm not sure, or maybe or I actually feel worse after I look at my social media, it might be a good opportunity to consider taking a step back, right? Whether that's for a part of a day or a more extended period of time, that's absolutely an okay thing to do. Social media is not going anywhere anytime soon. It'll always be there when you choose to step back into it, but sometimes we have to check in with ourselves too, right? And kind of monitor our social media use as well. All right, so what we're going to be going through in regards to coping skills is something along the lines of a Likert scale. So this is a really structured way for us to continue checking in with ourselves, right, and be able to gauge our anxiety and stress levels, find out which place we are in, and then think about the tools and skills that we can use to help manage our emotions when we are in a certain place. So if you're familiar with a scale like this, here's a layout of what we're summarizing it, at least applying it for today. Is we have the scale here. It ranges from 0 to 100, broken up into 3 different ranges. So again, provides us that kind of visual for us to determine which skills or tools are needed for specific ranges or situations. So self-care activities would be those things that we do on a day-to-day basis, right? So all the things we talked about in the first presentation of the series, all of those kind of daily things that we like doing that make us happy, bring us joy, make us feel productive, or help us de-stress and relax. Those would be self-care activities, so what we do through our day-to-day. Coping skills are the tools that we use to help manage our increasing levels of stress and anxiety. So it's when our nervous system starts to become activated, there's a whole bunch of different things that starts to happen as a result of that process. So then we may want to turn to different kind of coping skills to help manage that. And then distress tolerance skills are really specific tools that we do to calm down our bodies, right? As quickly as we can on a physiological level. So these are the tools that we would use when we start to feel really overwhelmed, maybe with our anxiety and stress. So let's take a quick look at each of these ranges individually. So the first range that we have is from 0 to 40. Right, this is the range that we are in when we feel good, right? We feel pretty okay. We feel like we can, continue on with our day, get the things done that we need to, but also find time for ourselves. It's only moving closer to 40 when you may start to notice that you're feeling a little anxious, right? You have that limited awareness that I'm starting to feel some anxiety, or I'm starting to like really feel that stress. And so this range is really where self-care activities are especially effective, and also when we want to be investing in our mental health. And I know I've said that a couple times, so I'll explain what I mean by that. When we talk about investing in our finances, it's really important, right, that we want to do our best to put a little away on a regular basis, so we have a little cushion to fall back on or something to pull from if and when we ever need to. We can think of practicing self-care in the same way. All we're doing by practicing self-care is depositing into our emotional bank account, right? And the more we can do that on a regular basis, the more we'll have to pull from. There may come a time down the road where you'll have to pull from that emotional bank account to support yourself or to help support another person. But the more we can invest on a regular basis, again, the more we'll have in our emotional bank account. And there are a bunch of different ways to practice self-care. The cool thing about it is you get to decide what works for you. And sometimes, since there are so many ways to practice self-care, even that can feel a little overwhelming at times. So if you feel like you don't really know what to do, you don't know which one to pick, try just going back to the basics, right? Staying hydrated, eating a healthy, balanced diet, making sure you're getting a good amount of sleep every night, that you're being physically active on a regular basis, and that you're remembering to breathe too, right? So this brings us to our first exercise. Since the title of this presentation is a practice in coping skills, we're going to take the opportunity throughout our time together to actually practice some of these coping skills all together, right? So the first one I want to do all together alongside with you is a diaphragmatic breathing exercise, right? I love breathing exercises. It's something that you can use no matter where you are, no matter when you need them, without drawing too much attention to yourself. And it's a really great way to just bring oxygen back into your system to help ground yourself. And hopefully you feel a little bit better about continuing on with your day and everything that's involved with that. So when it comes to diaphragmatic breathing, we want to really make sure that we're pulling from our diaphragm, which is actually more towards the top of our stomach, right? So normally when someone says take a deep breath, they're like, right, their chest puff out, because we think pulling from that upper chest area is what's going to give us the most amount of oxygen, but it's actually our diaphragm that we want to try to focus pulling that breath from, right? And I'm only explaining it because I'm sure as soon as I said like we should remember to breathe, some of you were thinking like, duh, Amanda, I know how to breathe. Like, why do I have to remind myself to do something that my body just automatically does? And you're not entirely wrong. You know, we're not always aware of the types of breaths that we are taking. So when we do experience stress or anxiety, what happens is our breaths actually become really short and really shallow. So we're not bringing a whole lot of oxygen into our system. So it is important to just pause every once in a while and just take in that deep breath. So we're going to practice this a couple times. If you're unfamiliar with diaphragmatic breathing, a really easy way to make the distinction between finding your diaphragm or pulling from your upper chest is to take one hand and put it on the top of your chest. Take your second hand and put it towards the top of your stomach, so your pinky is brushing the top of your belly button, right? So I realize that all of you are off camera, so I will have faith that you're doing this alongside with me. You can find that comfortable seated position. We're just going to practice taking a slow, deep breath in and a slow exhale out. I'll count you through it. But as you take in that deep breath, I want the hand that's on your stomach to push out further or to move more than the hand that's on your chest, right? We're just practicing being really aware of pulling from our diaphragm. All right, so again, find that comfortable seated position. If you want to put your hand on your chest and a hand on your stomach to help you out, feel free to do so. We're just going to take a slow, deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let it out. 4, 3, 2, 1. It's that simple. Okay, let's try it one more time. You're going to take that slow, deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let it out. 4, 3, 2, 1. Right? It's that easy. That's exactly what we mean by just remembering to take a deep breath every once in a while, right? Hitting that pause button, bringing oxygen back into our system. So that's one of my favorite coping skills I use on a regular basis, is doing those kind of deep breathing exercises. So you can absolutely add that to your tool belt. And I see in the chat, very soothing, wonderful. That's exactly what I was hoping to happen with this exercise. Great, thank you. All right, so the next range that we have is 40 to 60. So this is the range that we are in, where we are definitely aware that we are experiencing anxiety or stress. This is where we can, for example, start feeling it in our body, right, on a physiological level. So there may be like an increased heartbeat that's happening. There may be some muscle tension, some stomach pains, right? We get that kind of jaw pain because we've been clenching our jaw for the past 15 minutes and we didn't even realize it, right? So this is where we may start to notice that all of those really great self-care activities that worked well in the first range aren't quite as effective, right? So we want to shift more towards identifying those kind of more specific coping skills. And we can use a combination of self-care practices as well as coping skills to help manage these increasing levels of anxiety. But some examples could be aromatherapy, autogenic training, meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, and visualization. It's just a really short list. There's a whole bunch of other ones that are out there as well. We're going to practice a couple of them now, but one note I wanted to make before we do that is on aromatherapy. So aromatherapy is more than just smelling nice things, right? Things that we like to smell. It's a little more in depth than that. So if aromatherapy is something that you are interested in or you want to try out, I encourage you to do your homework a little bit, right? Do a little bit of research behind it, or at least talk to someone who is familiar with aromatherapy, because I know that there are some oils that should only be used when they are diffused. Some shouldn't be diffused. Some may be unsafe around pets or children, and safety comes first and foremost. We want our coping skills to be helpful and beneficial to us instead of harmful. So just do a little bit of research before you dive into that and actually practice it or adopt it into your routine, just so you're able to do so in the best way possible. So For this range, we're going to practice 2 exercises actually. It's autogenic training and progressive muscle relaxation. Right. So for autogenic training, the higher levels of stress that we may experience, the more likely it is that our nervous systems are going to start to activate. So one of the things that happens is that our blood flow is redirected from our limbs back to our torso to make it easier to run away from danger or to fight danger. And our minds recognize and interpret our body's reactions to stress as being that danger. So even though we're not actually running away from anyone or anything in like a physical sense, when we experience stress, it triggers that nervous system being activated, like this is danger. And so now all these processes start to happen. So with autogenic training, this is one way that we can start to calm down our nervous systems again and really shift our mind's interpretations by changing our body's response, right? So the goal for this is to utilize a little bit of self-hypnosis just to redirect our blood flow and send the message to our brain that this is me calming down, right? This is my body calming down. Right, so with any of these exercises, you can participate as you feel comfortable in doing so. Again, your cameras are all off, so it's not like we can see you. So I hope that you do participate alongside with me. But at any point you feel any kind of discomfort or you choose to opt out of an exercise practice, please by all means do so. But for this, we're going to find that comfortable seated position again. We're going to start off by practicing our deep diaphragmatic breath that we just learned with the last exercise. So taking that slow, deep breath in and exhaling out. Really concentrating on the types of breaths that you are taking. So take another deep breath in. Slowly exhale. And if you feel comfortable in closing your eyes, you can do so at this time. I want you to continue with those deep diaphragmatic breaths and repeat to yourself. My breath is rhythmic and smooth. My breath is rhythmic and smooth. My breath is rhythmic and smooth. Great. I'm taking another deep breath in. Slowly exhaling. We're going to move our concentration to our right arm and repeat to yourself. My right arm feels heavy and warm. My right arm feels heavy and warm. My right arm feels heavy and warm. Taking in another deep breath. Slowly exhaling. Now move your concentration to your left arm and repeat the same. My left arm feels heavy and warm. My left arm feels heavy and warm. My left arm feels heavy and warm. Taking in one last deep breath. Exhaling slowly. Just imagining more of that tension releasing from your body with each exhale. Great. Now we can start to slowly open our eyes, come back into this virtual space together. Maybe do a little stretch to get a last bit of tension out. Wonderful. Okay, now, so that was just a really short example of autogenic training. It does involve a little bit of self-hypnosis, so you kind of have to be in that space for it to feel effective. But so it may not work for everyone or be as effective for everyone, and that's okay. There's a bunch of other things that we can try out there. We're going to practice another one in just a second. But if you found like your hands maybe getting a little tingly, or you actually felt your left or right arm starting to get warm, then this might be a good exercise for you to add to your tool belt, right? To add to your coping skills list. All right, so the next exercise that we're going to be practicing is called progressive muscle relaxation. So this exercise can actually be looked at as being the other side of the coin from autogenic training, right? So autogenic training is using our mind to change our body, and progressive muscle relaxation is using our body to change our mind, right? So our brains take in a certain amount of information from our bodies throughout the day, and it pushes away everything else that it deems not important, right? It's not something that I have to worry about right now, not something I have to give any kind of awareness to. So I'm just going to push that piece of information to the side. So like, what does that mean, right? So for example, how heavy is your shirt? Right now, you're probably really concentrating on how heavy your top is, right? Maybe you're kind of shifting the material around a little bit to feel the weight of it. So that's an example of a piece of information that our brain just pushes to the side because it's not something that we have to worry about or have to be aware of. Now, if our shirts weighed like 10 pounds, we probably would notice that because it might feel a little bit uncomfortable or be like a sensation that we're not totally used to, right? Another question that is an example of this is, what does the space between your eyes feel like? Just this area right here. And I'm sure some of you are like actually touching that space between your eyes. Maybe you're like shifting your nose around or scrunching your eyebrows. If you have glasses, like you're adjusting your glasses on your face. But that's just another example of a piece of information that our brain says not important, right? Not something that I have to be aware of or pay attention to. Now, when we experience feelings of stress, one of the ways our nervous system activates is by creating muscle tension, right? Again, preparing us to fight or to run away from that danger. So when those feelings of stress are prolonged, right, they're happening over a more extended period of time, then our minds actually start to recognize those increasing levels of muscle tension as being the new normal, right, or the new threshold. And so that threshold slowly starts to get higher and higher and higher without us even necessarily realizing it. So this is really where we may start to notice that jaw pain, back pain, or we got some tension in our neck and shoulders, and we're just sore because of that buildup of muscle tension. So we're going to practice a short exercise that demonstrates how progressive muscle relaxation works. So what happens is we're going to be moving through a couple different muscle groups. We're going to hyper tighten that muscle so that when we release it, it'll be a hyper release, right? We can actually feel that tension falling away, right? And our brains in turn will interpret that as being, okay, this is me calming down now. So again, using our bodies to shift our mind, right? Or to change the mind a bit. So find that comfortable seated position again. If at any point, especially for this exercise, you feel any kind of discomfort as we move through the different muscle groups, simply practice your deep breathing exercises and just wait for the next muscle group that we get to. Okay, we're going to start by taking a slow, deep breath in and letting it out. Allow your focus to center on your body as you continue. So slow, deep breaths in and slow exhales out. Imagine as you breathe deeply and exhaling slowly that you feel that tension in your body and you're breathing it out with each exhale, just letting that tension go. So I want you to focus on your forehead. I want you to raise your eyebrows as high as you can and hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And slowly release that. Taking a deep breath in. Slowly exhaling out. Now we're going to move down to our mouth and our cheek area. Right, so I want you to smile as widely as you can. Right, really feel that tension in your cheeks. And I can't smile and count at the same time without being incredibly distracting. So you smile as widely as you can. Again, really feel that tension in your cheek and hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slowly release that tension in your cheek. Great. Taking another deep breath in. Slowly exhaling. We're going to move down to our shoulder. Okay, so I want you to shrug your shoulders as high as you can and hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slowly release that. Maybe rotate your shoulders around a couple times to get the rest of that tension out. Taking another deep breath in. Letting it out slowly. Just imagining even more of that tension falling away. Now we're going to move down to our arms. Right, so you can pick a hand, either your left hand or your right hand, but we're just going to start by making a really tight fist. Be careful if you have longer nails that you're not digging your nails into your palm, but just make that super, super tight fist and hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slowly release that fist. Maybe shake out your hand a little bit to get that extra tension out. Taking another deep breath in. Slow exhale out. We're going to move to our opposite hand. And again, make that super tight fist. Hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And release that fist. Shake out your hand a little bit. All right, taking in one last deep breath. Slowly exhale. Releasing even more of that built up muscle tension. We can slowly start to open our eyes and come back into the room together. Wonderful. All right. Okay, so this is again another modified version of a coping skill exercise. So for progressive muscle relaxation, it's actually something that you can use with your entire body, right? Starting from the very top of your head all the way down to your toes. So we're just moving from muscle group to muscle group, hyper tightening each muscle group so that when we release, we can feel that tension falling away, right? We're kind of forcing our body and our muscle groups to actually relax. And that in turn is going to send that message to our brain that this is me calming down now. All right, so the third range that we have is from 60 to 100. So this is where high levels of stress, the higher levels of stress that we may be experiencing, we might find that even those coping skills that we just practiced or any other kind of coping skills that we may have in our tool belt may not be as effective, right? Because it's actually really hard to concentrate and to pay attention during times of high stress and high anxiety. So this is where our nervous systems are definitely activated. So we want to shift towards using really specific distress tolerance skills to be able to calm down our nervous system. Right, so we still want to be using different kind of coping skills like diaphragmatic breathing, but these are just a couple of examples of the other kind of distress tolerance skills that we can utilize if we ever find ourselves in this range here. So things like the dive response, practicing radical acceptance, being present focused, or a combination of a couple of them, right? So radical acceptance is simply, I can summarize it for you, but it's actually a lot more in depth than me summarizing it. Just for you, radical acceptance is simply accepting things for the way that they are, right? If it's something that I can change or that I have control over, I will do that. But if it's not, then I have to let that go, right? And accept that I don't have control over whatever that may be. Okay? And it's not an easy thing to do, to be able to do that with practice. It takes time. Sometimes it's a daily practice. Sometimes it takes the help of a mental health professional. But it does kind of help in grounding yourself again, right? Bringing you back and helping you be present focused and letting go of the things that we don't necessarily have control over. And it's not to say that, letting things go or getting over things, is just kind of letting it go and we don't ever have to think about it again, right? It's actually us healing a bit from it, right? So instead of putting our time and energy towards ruminating over it or, you know, thinking constantly over, like, I wish I could change things or I wish I had control over this specific situation or aspect of my life. Instead, we're putting our time and energy towards growing from it or healing from it, right? So radical acceptance, again, it's an easy thing to kind of summarize, but it's a harder thing to actually put into practice. But it can be a way for you to help find your balance again, especially when we may experience higher levels of stress and anxiety. The exercise that we are going to cover is the dive response. It's one of our favorite distress tolerance skills here at Mental Health America of Hawaii. So we won't actually practice this in reality or, like with physical things, because you actually need access to a bowl of water for this or a cold, wet rag. But the dive response is a really effective way to calm down our nervous system quickly. So we actually have a gland inside of our nose that keeps us from involuntarily breathing when we go swimming. And some of you might be thinking, well, like, Amanda, I don't breathe when I swim because I hold my breath. And yeah, true, right? When we go swimming, we hold our breath when we go underwater. But even when we're unexpectedly submerged, if someone pushes you into the ocean or pushes you into a pool and you're not ready for it, you automatically hold your breath, right? Without even thinking about it, because your body recognizes that you're not in a place right now to be able to bring oxygen inside of your system. So what happens as a result of that is your body is going to start to try to keep as much oxygen inside, right, intrinsically as possible. So, for example, your heart rate slows down, your blood pressure slows down, right? Your blood circulation slows down as well. Again, we're trying to just reserve the oxygen levels within our body until we have the opportunity to take another breath, right? So automatically, our nervous systems are coming down almost immediately. So what the dive response does is it mimics going underwater by activating that gland that we have in our nose. We could do this in creative ways because I recognize that when we are feeling super stressed out or overwhelmed with anxiety, we can't just jump into the ocean, right? Or we may not have access to a pool to like jump into. So we have to be creative with this, right? So for example, your brain won't be able to tell the difference between a cold, wet rag, right? And just laying it over this portion of your face, or getting a bowl of cold water and just sticking your face in it, holding your breath for about 10 seconds, right? Both of those things will activate the dive response. So it'll mimic you actually going underwater. So all of those same things will happen, right? Your heart rate will slow down, your blood pressure goes down, your blood circulation goes down, etc. So we can creatively activate that dive response. And it's a really effective way to, on a physiological level, almost kind of hit that reset button, right? To calm down our nervous system, right? So it's a really great skill to use when someone may be feeling overwhelmed. And then we can use a combination of the other coping skills that we have on hand, right? Or and as we continue that process of kind of calming down, moving on to other self-care activities too. And I do see a question in the chat that says, does it need to be a cold bowl of water? I would recommend that it is cold water, because another thing that happens when our nervous system is activated is that our body temperature rises, right? So a way to kind of control that or to manage that is having the temperature be cold when you stick your face. And I've had some people ask, like, if I stand under my shower head and just let, the water kind of hit this area of my face and slide down, it can be helpful. I'm not sure it'll be enough all the time to activate that dive response, right? And I see that in the chat, put your face under running water. It may not be as effective in activating that dive response as it would be submerging your face in a bowl of cold water or laying that cold wet rag over this portion of your face. But you can certainly try it. And if it does work for you, you can feel your body starting to calm down, then that can absolutely be a way for you to practice this exercise as well. But thank you for those. Those are really great questions. All right, so again, just a couple different, I think it's a nicer way than waterboarding ourselves, right? Because we're trying to help us, right, instead of hurt us. But you know, yes, we are using water to help calm down our nervous system, right? Yeah, so the spot on our face, we'll try to get closer to the camera. So our gland is just right in our nose here. So if you have that cold wet rag, you're just laying it over this portion of your face, right? Having it cover your eyes and your nose, but not blocking your nostril area. So you can actually still do that breathing, right? So it's just gonna be that portion of your face. If you're using the cold wet rag, if you have that bowl of water, just make sure it's big enough for you to stick your face in there and hold your breath for about 10 seconds. Okay. All right, so we can use a combination of a whole bunch of different skills. So either ones that we learned and practiced for today, or a lot of the other really great ones that are out there. There are free apps that you can download that'll help teach you a multitude of different skills, free YouTube videos that you can watch, right? That'll teach you these skills as well. If you are connected with a mental health professional, they can absolutely teach you these skills too. So find what's going to work for you, but also find the ones that are going to work for you in different situations, right? You know, if I'm like in a middle of a presentation and for some reason my anxiety just shoots through the roof and starts skyrocketing, I can't pause and dunk my face in a bowl of cold water in the middle of all of it, right? But I can just take a moment and do some really deep breathing exercise, right? And just kind of bring oxygen back into my system. So find those skills that you can utilize in different settings or when you're in different places, and brainstorm those now so that when you do find yourself at any point in either the or any of those three ranges, you'll know what skills or tools that are going to work for you and be effective. And it is important that we are able to kind of gauge where we're at, you know, with how everything has been over the past couple of years, where we may normally find ourselves in that 0 to 40 range. And then when we experience more stress or anxiety, it pushes us up into that 40 to 60 range. Sometimes our baselines are actually starting in that 40 to 60 range. Right? So any additional stress or anxiety will push us over into that 60 to 100 range. So, you know, check in with yourself, right? Know your physiological tells, know what skills that you can utilize on a regular basis just to help manage those increasing levels. And I see another question for the dive response exercise. Would doing that repeatedly improve the effectiveness with appropriate breaks for breathing, or do you just activate it once? I would say, and if Dr. G is on with me and can help me out in the chat and answer that, I would say you can do it as many times as you need to until you feel your body calming down and you start to feel more calm, right? And you feel more grounded, you feel more present. So if it happens after just one time doing that, awesome. If you need to do it a couple more times while taking breaks to breathe again, right? And not just keep your face in that bowl of water, go ahead and do that. For the cold wet rag, I think it might be a little easier to take the time to do that. And you can do some diaphragmatic breathing exercises alongside that. Maybe even some progressive muscle relaxation at the same time too, right? So you've got 3 coping skills right there. Diaphragmatic breathing, activating the dive response, and progressive muscle relaxation. So you're getting like a 3 return fold for just taking the time to practice that, right? So find what is going to be effective for you. You can practice it. And if you find that one isn't necessarily as effective, don't worry, there are plenty of other ones that are out there. So I hope that does answer your question. But if it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I can go back and check to give you a more specific answer to that question, because I'm not a mental health professional. Dr. Misty Sagas is. Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you, Jerry, another one of my teammates in the chat. Awesome, thank you so much. All right, so it's important for us to learn what our physiological tells are when we experience stress and anxiety, because we're all different. We all are our own individuals. So of course we experience things maybe a little differently than other people would. So for example, someone may become really fidgety or have a really hard time concentrating or paying attention while experiencing stress or anxiety. Others may appear calm on the outside, but then later start to have trouble with sleep or digestive issues. So you are the expert on yourself. So check in, pay attention to things like muscle tension or changes in sleeping habits. This kind of check-in can also be done using that Likert scale. So asking, what are my physiological symptoms when I am in a certain range? Like what happens when I am in that 40 to 60 range versus what I may be experiencing in that 60 to 100 range, right? And that'll help us to even further identify the appropriate skills that we need to use to help calm down our bodies or to calm down our nervous system. Reach out as well. Take the time to foster and to grow relationships and connections with our friends and with our loved ones over a period of time, so that we know that we have people to lean on if and when we ever need to. And learn a little bit more about yourself, kind of on a deeper level too, right? Explore the pieces that make up you. So these are some of the questions that we can ask ourselves to really kind of start to reflect on the different facets of our identity, who we are. And that may also give us insight on how to manage our stress level. So asking things like, how do I communicate, right? What are my communication styles? What creates stress in my life? Where are those areas where I feel like I am experiencing higher levels of stress or anxiety? And then what can I do to feel better? What are my personal strengths? Where are the areas in my life that I feel good at, right? Or productive or accomplished in, or capable in even. And then where are my growth edges? Where are the areas in my life that I have the opportunity to learn and to grow even more? How do I cope with specific emotions, right? So identifying what we are feeling, what we are experiencing, and then finding ways to be able to cope with whatever it is that we may be experiencing. And who is in my support system, right? Who are the people I know I can turn to when I need someone to turn to? We can also utilize these skills for other people too, right? So all of the skills that we practice and that we learned today, and we talked about are also things that we can share with others. So when we would want to share different coping skills or pieces of information about like gauging our levels of stress and anxiety, is if we start to notice causes of concern or maybe even different warning signs in another person, like a friend or loved one or coworker or colleague, or if someone may have a history of mental health challenges, and we're just doing that check-in, right, to make sure that they have their own set of skills that are going to work for them to help manage where they are, right? It may even be an opportunity to show them the ones that you just learned if they are unfamiliar. Say, hey, I went to this really amazing presentation where I learned these super cool coping skills and I want to take the time to practice them. Do you want to practice alongside with me, right? We can learn together. But again, there's so much information and resources out there that can help you learn these skills and master them too. I see a question in the chat: is there an actual questionnaire to assess which Likert range you're in? I didn't have an actual questionnaire for you to assess. It's more kind of checking in with how your body kind of handles stress and deals with anxiety and where you are and kind of gauging. We just had those 3 ranges as a kind of structured way for you to be able to do that. But there's no kind of specific questions. If you want to ask yourself questions like, what are my physiological tells? Like, how does my body react when I'm in, a certain range, or when I'm in a specific situation? I think that can help you brainstorm your skill set within those 3 ranges. So don't worry, you didn't miss anything. All right, we can also use these skills for little ones too. A lot of the skills that we talked about using for adults can be modified and adapted in really creative ways to use with our small children, right? So by introducing these skills early on, we can help to start building their emotional toolboxes, right, at an early age. And those emotional toolboxes will only continue to evolve and grow as they do. So for example, diaphragmatic breathing, right? Those deep breathing exercises can be taught and practiced by using bubbles. And who doesn't like bubbles, right? I know plenty of adults who like bubbles as well, but if you tell a child or a kid to blow the biggest bubble that you can, right? It's a really creative way for them to be really cognizant of the type of breath that they are taking, right? If they blow too quickly, that bubble's going to pop right away. If they blow too slowly, then that bubble's not going to expand, right, to the size that we want to get to. So it's a creative way to start teaching those deep breathing exercising or those diaphragmatic breathing skills at a very early age and have a little fun while doing it too. We can modify the Likert scale as well. So instead of having ranges from 0 to 100, right, 0 to 40, 60, 40 to 60, 60 to 100, maybe we can break it down to colors, right? Green is when I feel good and happy and I'm having a good day. Yellow is when I don't know, right? It's not the best day. I don't really know what I'm feeling right now. I don't know how to express what I'm feeling right now. And then red is when I'm upset, right? Or I'm frustrated or I'm angry, I'm mad about something. So we can simplify that Likert scale as well for our little ones to help them be able to identify where they're at, but also be able to communicate with us, right? And that's going to help inform us as supportive adults to help them cope with whatever it is that they may be experiencing as well. We can build an actual emotional toolbox too. So a box and put those things and those tools in there that you can get your hands on, right? And engage your senses to cope, right? So whether that's a stress ball or maybe you do have a little thing of bubbles that you keep in there so you can take some bubble breath. Maybe it's some Play-Doh that has a nice smell to it, right? Like a nice calming lavender smell, for example. So maybe it's a fidget spinner, right, that you got in there. Whatever that may be, you can actually build a physical toolbox and just keep it on hand. So anytime our little ones become overwhelmed or really stressed out or feeling anxious themselves, they have something tangible that they can turn to and pull different things from to help engage their senses and hopefully help them cope in a better way as well. We have a ton of different resources, like different coloring pages, different activities that you can do with little ones to ideas on how to build emotional toolboxes on our website. So I'm sure at some point we'll drop our website link into the chat, but you can check out all of those online resources. Many of them are free to download and you can print out as many as you want and utilize them as much as you need to. But just know that there are a lot of really creative ideas out there. As we move from our little ones into adolescents or young adults, we can teach these skills as well. It's actually going to start to look a lot like the ones that we do use as adults, but the differences may be in the time frame, right? So instead of finding a half an hour guided meditation video, maybe we can start with an easy, like 4 or 5 minute one, right? We've got a couple 4 minute meditation videos on our YouTube channel, right? Which I'm sure we'll drop. Thank you, Jay. She's already dropping our website in there. But we have 4 minute meditation videos that you can try out, right? Meditation is something that I think takes practice. I mean, even for me as an adult, it takes some effort for me to sit there and only concentrate on one thing at a time. It's actually really hard to do. So we can't expect our adolescents or young adults even to sit there for an extended period of time, but they can start off with baby steps, right? And if it's something that they start kind of building and getting into, and that's something they can have on hand in a more extended sense as they move into adulthood. We want to help our teens and young adults identify different emotions as well, because this may not be an easy thing to do, right? Or it may not be easily identifiable right away. So finding words, right, to express what it is that they may be thinking or feeling, and then following it up with what are the things that we can do to make ourselves feel better, right? So kind of building their own and expanding their own emotional toolboxes, building their own sense of resiliency. We want to brainstorm a concrete plan, right? So it's helpful to have a really specific tools and skills, whether those are on hand or just things that you can do or kind of take with you anywhere, that they can turn to if and when they need to. So whether that is, again, having that stress ball on the desk or a fidget spinner, or teaching them deep, diaphragmatic breathing exercises, whatever that may be, we can have kind of a concrete pre-brainstormed plan that our youth can turn to if and when they need to in regards to their increasing levels of stress and anxiety, because we know that our youth are definitely experiencing higher levels of stress and anxiety, especially over the past couple of years. And we want to make sure that they are able to manage that themselves, but know that they're supported in that process too. We can help our youth create support plans. I think support plans are good for anyone and everyone, not just youth or young adults. Adults should have their own support plans too. And having a support plan isn't necessarily for someone who only may be in a crisis, right? Everyone should have some type of support plan or an idea of what their support plan is. So who do I go to talk to that helps make me feel better, right? Who do I go to talk about my stress, right? Or things that I have going on in my life. So really identifying those specific people that you know you can turn to when you need someone to talk to and have those deeper conversations with, but also identifying those people that you just enjoy interacting with, right? Maybe you have a friend who's like super funny and you share TikTok videos with back and forth, right? Or funny memes to each other, right? Whatever that may be, identify all the different types of connections that you have in your life and how they fit into your support plan. If you are connected to a mental health professional or a medical professional, even having their contact, right? A list of providers with their phone numbers programmed into your phone. And I always suggest folks to do the same with the crisis resources as well, the Hawai'i Cares Line, National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, Crisis Text Line, Trevor Helpline if you have an LGBTQ plus youth in your life. Having these crisis resources already programmed into our contacts, into our devices, takes the pressure off of us having to try to Google them in the moment, right? If we do ever find ourselves needing to call or contact one of them, we'll already have them right there ready to go. We can continue to explore and help, of course, our youth explore their deeper selves, right? Their inner self. So asking those kind of bigger questions, much like we did with those, what makes up me, right? Like, who am I? What kind of person do I want to be? Right? How am I treating the people that I have in my life? Right? What kind of impact do I want to have? What kind of footprint do I want to leave behind? So we can ask those kind of larger questions to plant those seeds of thinking, right? What kind of person do they want to be? And kind of continue to build and help them explore their own identity and everything that makes that up as well. Right, so when we do work, oftentimes when I do that kind of brainstorm with self-care practices or with coping skills with youth, I like to ask them to think about it as being in 3 different categories just to make it easy, right? To help inform that brainstorm. So that's people, that's places, and that's activities, right? So again, thinking about the people we know we can go, or they know they can go to when they need someone to lean on, the places that they can practice self-care at as well, and be super specific about it. Don't just let the answer be, I like being at home. Where in your home do you like to be, right? Is it in your room where you can have your own private space, right? Your alone time to listen to music or to read or to journal a little bit? Is it being in your kitchen to connect with the people in your household, right? By cooking or eating together. Find those really specific places. If you like being outside, like I like going to the beach, what's your favorite beach, right? Where's your favorite place to jump into the water, or where's your favorite place to catch that sunset? And then activities, we want to have them brainstorm really specific things as well, right? Not just saying, I like listening to music. Like, what's your favorite song right now? What do you have on repeat? What's the new artist that you just discovered that you're really into, right? So be really specific about what those activities are and ways to practice self-care too. And then in addition to that, we can teach them modified versions of all of these coping skills as well. And again, we're just helping them build up their sense of resiliency, and they're going to have all these really awesome tools for them to be able to support themselves as they continue navigating through life. All right, so there are a bunch of different kinds of resources out there. I know this says Crisis Line of Hawaii. It's actually now the Hawai'i Cares Line, but the phone numbers are still the same. But these are the different examples I was talking about earlier. It is important to know that these resources are out there, that they are available. If anyone is in a mental health related crisis or they're experiencing thoughts of suicide, reach out, right, to the Hawai'i Cares Line, to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You know, these operators are trained to help connect with that person, right, to help talk them through it, ask the right questions, and figure out what kind of support that they need in that moment. The Domestic Violence Action Center is also a great resource to know, other resources that have to do with intimate partner violence, child trafficking, or abuse that may be happening at the home. We should absolutely know what those are, because we know that we have been spending a lot more time at home, and not every home is a safe place. So we want to be able to share these resources and know what they are for our own selves, right? If we ever need to pass them along to someone who is in need of contacting one of these great organizations, or maybe we ourselves need to reach out to one of these resources, know what these numbers are. The Trevor hotline, I love the Trevor Project. It's one of my favorite resources to talk about and to share, but it does wonders to help support our LGBTQ plus youth. So if you have a youth in your life who identifies as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, is not sure, or any other identity that may be out there, they have so many pieces of information on their website and different types of resources as well. They have their own 24/7 helpline. They have their own chat feature. I think they have their own texting feature as well. So direct them to that. There's a lot of really great information and different types of support for our LGBTQ plus youth. I see in the chat 4-minute meditations will be really helpful. I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, 4 minutes. Right? It seems like, oh my gosh, I have to find 4 minutes in my schedule, right? But we can again invest in our mental health and work self-care into our schedules and into our routines, right? It's important that we do so consistently, that we are taking care of ourselves so that we are able to get through our days, that we are able to manage increasing levels of stress and anxiety, and just continue in general, like navigating life. Here's a screen grab from our website that has all of those online resources that I was mentioning earlier, for our little ones and for adults as well. Feel free to check out our Get Connected page. You can also find where we post maybe future training opportunities, like signing up for mental health first aid, for example, or different events that we may be putting on or collaborating with. You can have access to our YouTube channel. We can see previous recordings or find those 4-minute meditation videos, printable activities, downloadable graphics, whatever it may be. Check it out. We have a lot of really awesome resources on our website. We're also on social media. So I know we are on Facebook. We have a couple different groups that we run. So one of them is Busy Bees. So this is a group for our little ones. So we post like fun animal videos, fun jokes, or like bee jokes, or fun animal facts, or activities that you can do with your little ones to help build emotional toolboxes, like making a calming jar, right? Which I think are super awesome. And I love calming jars even as an adult. But it'll give you instructions on be able to do that. Right? We also have a book club. So if reading is something that you're really into, we make monthly book recommendations, post different kind of quotes, all things that help to support mental wellness and different ways to practice self-care. We also have a group for Maui County as well. So if you live or work or reside in Maui County and you want learn a little bit more about the different resources that are out there that are available, feel free to connect with that group, and you can connect with others in your community who also want to promote mental wellness or even raise awareness about mental health. All right, so that is pretty much everything that I have for you today. I was hoping I would be able to talk a little bit longer. Sometimes I get scared of like rambling on and just going off tangent, but now would be a good time to ask any questions that may have popped up. It could be about anything that we talked about today, or the first presentation, or any kind of resources or anything that's mental health related. We have our contact info on the slide here. I'm sure that these slides are going to be made available to you in that follow-up email, but it's also been recorded, so you can go back and watch it if you want to practice those exercises again. And thank you, I see in the chat, like, training is fantastic. I feel calm already. Yes, I would never normally say this, but if you like fell asleep or you felt super relaxed and you're just kind of like no bones day in your chair, awesome. Like, I'm really happy that that happened. Like any other presentation that we give, we fall asleep, like, okay, right? But this one, especially if you felt really relaxed, then I think it's a really great opportunity, and I'm grateful that you all had the chance to actually practice these skills and feel the effect in real time, so you can take that time to practice it in the future as well. Awesome. I see a bunch of comments, so I'm just going to kind of scroll through and see if there's anything there.
Maka, you're muted.
Thank you, Bev. I'm over here just rambling on. Thank you for that. I just want to give everybody a shout out again, actually give a shout out to Amanda. And for those who are participating on today's call, I hope it was really relaxing and helped ease you into the end of your Aloha Friday. We did have a question. I think it's for you, Amanda, specifically. Do you folks take Kaiser Permanente coverage for IBH services? And is this an entity affiliated at all to any providers?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So with our organization specifically, Mental Health America Hawai'i, we don't provide any direct services. So we don't offer like counseling or therapy or anything along those lines, but we do help point people in the right direction. So we can help give you a couple starting points if you are looking to connect with a program or with a mental health professional that takes a specific insurance, for example. We can help you kind of find out that information. If you do have insurance, a really great way to start is by calling Kaiser, for example, and just checking to see which providers are in their network, right? Or which services may be covered, and they can give you referrals. But if you have insurance, starting by calling your insurance is a really great first step in identifying what those different services are out there. If you don't happen to have insurance coverage or it's not the best insurance coverage, there's also a lot of really great community programs that accept folks who maybe may not have the finances to be able to pay out of pocket for these services. They'll be able to adjust that or to offer you that coverage or that service regardless of insurance coverage. So those are resources that are out there, but for us specifically, we don't necessarily provide those direct services.
Awesome, great, thank you. I've seen a lot of good. Yep, thank you. It's good comments here. I had a question. So I know you were talking about that scale, like we had some folks who are like 0, or how you measure stress, anxiety, like 0 to 40, and then the 40, 60 and up. What would you advise for somebody who comes in to you and says like I'm kind of at a 30, but maybe some days are like at a 50. Would you recommend starting at a higher level in terms of the train or like the tools and tips? Would you start at a higher level and then work downwards, or would you actually start kind of more at a mild, like the smaller activities, maybe just the breathing exercises? How would you like move forward with that assessment?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think it really depends on the person. So it does help to, it'll take some exploration too, to be able to find ways to gauge where you're at, and then also find the skills or things that you need to do that'll work for you when you're in that place. So sometimes, you may be feeling, higher levels of stress and anxiety if you are in that 40 to 60 range, and doing a deep breathing exercise, I think is always a really great place to start. But if that's not enough, then you can move on to the other things that you have, right? The other skills in your tool set. I think you'll know if you're feeling pretty overwhelmed, right? Because that's when, we can physically feel it in our bodies on a physiological level, or our brains are just like going haywire, right? The thoughts are just running through our heads. We can't concentrate. It's hard to pay attention to anything. So then maybe we would want to start higher up with those distress tolerance skills, like the dive response, for example. So it really kind of depends on the person, and I think it takes some self-exploration too to know what your tells are. But there's so many different skills out there for you to be able to use, and you can really start wherever works for you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good feedback. Thank you. Bev had asked, radical acceptance. Do you know if there's a 4-minute meditation on that topic? Maybe not.
I don't think we have one specifically on our YouTube channel on radical acceptance, but we do kind of mention it in our other presentations. And I know that there's a lot of really great information that's out there too. So if you have trouble kind of finding what that information is, feel free to email us. We're always happy to provide information that we have, or kind of if you want to call our office and talk through it a little bit, like we can too. But it's also something that you can talk to and practice with a mental health professional as well. They're going to have a lot of really great background knowledge and perspective on what that actually looks like from our day-to-day practicing that radical acceptance. Maybe there should be a 4-minute meditation video on radical acceptance, though. That's an idea for our next one.
I like that idea. I also like 4 minutes. I don't know. I feel like 4 minutes of meditating, and then because 10 minutes just seem really long. In like real life, not the treadmill minutes, but like real life minutes seem quite long to have to.
I agree. Yes.
I do. Awesome. Okay, I'm getting a lot of thank yous. I know we're a little bit early, but maybe we can have Amanda, if you want to wrap up. I know this is just such great information in your presentation, so informative. I feel like there's a lot of information that's been shared and so forth. So I don't want to like keep folks on and trying to like run out the time. But maybe if Amanda, if you have any a couple more, maybe like 1 or 2 minutes of your like final thoughts and what you want to share with the folks, any key takeaways that they want to be, implementing it further into their daily life, just feel free to let us know.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, what comes to mind first and foremost is just a huge thank you to everyone who took the time out of their day to hop on with me and to hear this information and to take the time to actually practice these skills as well. And even folks who are logging on from outside of Hawaii, right? So like different parts of the United States, different time zones. I appreciate you taking the time. It is Friday, so we have something to look forward to as a way to practice self-care is, again, fostering that optimism. So it is the weekend. It's a really great opportunity for us to reconnect, with our friends, our loved ones, our social circles, do fun activities. I do hope that you are taking all of this information to heart and that you're working all of these different skill sets into your schedule, like ways to practice self-care, identifying different coping skills that are going to work in different situations. I mean, everyone has been experiencing higher levels of stress and anxiety over the past couple of years. We've seen that coming out in the research that has been made available, that pretty much across the board, everyone's mental health has been impacted in some form or fashion. So I am hoping that one like silver lining to come out of all of this is that people do have a more open mind when it comes to talking about mental health, when it comes to having conversations and actually doing things to take care of our mental health, right? We want to be able to raise awareness. We want to have sometimes those difficult or uncomfortable conversations, right, with other people. And the more conversations that we have, the more message we send that it's okay to not be okay sometimes, right? It's not that problem to have a problem, but it is a problem if it's something that we feel like we can't talk about, right? And getting help is effective. It does work. There's a lot of different ways to be able to do that. It looks differently for everyone, but that's not even something that someone has to go through on their own, right? If they are struggling, they don't have to look for that help on their own, right? There are people out there, there are resources out there that can help in that journey as well. So, I mean, keep having those conversations, keep raising awareness, but also keep taking care of yourself, right? Self-care is not a selfish thing by any means. We have to be able to take care of ourselves because I'm sure every single person who has logged on to this presentation is juggling so many things, and sometimes we wear that as like a badge of honor, right? Like, look at all the things I'm getting done, like all these plates I'm balancing and how many things I'm working on at the same time. But when we split our attention like that, it takes our focus away from things that we may need to focus on, right? So sometimes it does help to kind of focus on one thing at a time, right? One task at a time. Really do that mindful kind of present focus throughout your day. And hopefully that'll set you up to just continue pushing forward.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for those parting thoughts and whatnot on sharing for today's presentation. For the folks that are still on the call, thank you for joining. I want to give a shout out to Amanda and our team behind the scenes that are helping to put on these trainings. Just as a reminder, this has been recorded and I will share it on our Hawaii Public Health YouTube channel. And I'll also share Mental Health America's Your Folks' meditation playlist too, and share that with our participants today. I think I'm going to start like listening to one right after this. Just as a reminder, we do have our next webinar is Friday, May 13th. But it's from 3 to 4:30. Okay, the topic, it is quite of a time change for our normal afternoon presentations. We are centering this one more around youth and mental health services. So we are trying to tailor it more for youth, the youth to participate. So just as a reminder, it is time change to 3 o'clock Hawaii time. So our New Jersey and our East Coast brothers and sisters, that is quite a late night for you. But again, this will be recorded and we hope that you all can join us I will be sending out the Mahalo email with the evaluation. Please complete that by next week, Tuesday, the 22nd. And the certificates will be mailed out to you folks no later than Friday, April 1st. Aloha, everyone. Have a great rest of your Aloha Friday, and we hope to see you at our next webinar. Bye, folks.